Hey friends, this is Tim Easton, and you are watching Time to Connect.
Hey Tim Easton, thanks for taking the time to connect, man.
Thank you so much for having me on again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on again. I cannot believe that it's been almost 2 years ago. Uh,
Was it was there a pandemic going on? I can't remember.
well, no, it was kind of at the end of it. The date was March 30th of 2022, so it's not quite 2 years, but really close, really
I
close.
have
And I know you've been busy. You're always a busy man, so I know there's
I have been busy.
a lot that we can catch up on. You released a new record in that time. You toured a lot. I know you just got back from Ireland. I want to ask you about that,
Yeah,
and
man.
you've got something coming up that I want to ask you about. So
Yeah.
yeah. So are you coming to us from Nashville?
I am. I'm in the nice suburb of Madison, Tennessee, which is basically northeast Nashville. It's a
Hmm.
little subdivision there. Mostly suburban kind of vibes up here. I can't walk to a coffee shop. I can take a bike to one, but
Hmm.
it's a little different. It's probably the best part of town in many ways for us creatives. There's a lot of us around. I've been walking these streets in my neighborhood, and I constantly hear someone playing guitar or doing something out of one of these houses. It's very common in Nashville, of course, but it turns out to be. It looks like a lot of 50s and 60s suburbs in a lot of towns, but this one just happens to have a lot of bands loading in and out all the time.
Reminds me of Austin. You know,
Yeah,
I'm near Austin, and
right.
uh, one of the jokes is to move to Austin to rent a place, you got to show that you do play guitar before you're allowed to.
I
Uh,
suppose, yeah. There's Canadian bands on my street. It's just remarkable. Every time I walk down it, I'll meet, I meet some people from El Salvador or
yeah,
whatever. It's a very, uh, you know, diverse group of people that live up here in Madison, and I love it. It's a great place to tour out of as a touring musician, and yeah, I enjoy this neighborhood.
how long does it take you to get down to Nashville proper?
Um, well, I do deliver my daughter to school right downtown, and that's a 15-minute drive
Oh,
on a good
nice,
day. Yeah, that's
nice.
perfect, right?
Yeah. Speaking of your daughter, how old is she?
13.
13. I have a 13-year-old daughter as well,
Oh, cool.
and that's one of the things that I admire about you is that you have pulled off being a troubadour and also being a dad, and
Yes.
that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like hide or be secretive about any of the stuff I do. There still are challenges, right? Because of what's coming up in my future with this record I made in Canada, I'm going to be going on the road quite a bit in 2024. And I'm excited about it. There's about 55, 60 shows going to be announced here pretty soon. And very excited about that. But I do get the only thing that brings me down is that I'm separate when I'm away from my kiddo. It's one thing to do one long weekend a month and come back. But if you're out there for 2 weeks, any more than 2 weeks, and you start to feel a little foolish, I've found. And, no amount of FaceTime, that, really grateful for the Pocket Oracle that I can talk to her on. Her mom's in Mexico right now at an art conference, and her mom's FaceTiming her. And, we use it every day, but there's no substitute
Yeah,
for going for a walk
yeah,
by the river and
yeah,
hanging out and shooting the breeze and talking about stuff. And that's
yeah.
really where it gets down to it. So yeah, I'm a dad that's also a troubadour. I'm gone a bit, and we talk about it because I don't want it to affect her in a negative way. And then when I'm home a lot more than most dads. You know what I mean? Like I have more time
Yeah.
on my hand. I'm not working 9 to 5, so we have on the weekends and stuff like that. We can have a good old time. Just yeah, hit Nashville and Tennessee in general are good for rivers and woods and outdoor stuff. So really grateful for that.
And if you're anything like me, even if it's just a 15-minute drive, that drive to school every morning is kind of an important time.
Absolutely, that's where I brainwashed her with the Beatles. There's no way around it. I didn't
Yeah.
mean for that to happen. I didn't say like you've got to listen to this. I just had it on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of years later, I had the, you know, like the Sirius XM stations, right? They're perfect. You know, you could listen to Tom Petty station, or you could listen to Little
Right.
Stevens, or the classical station, or whatever, jazz, you know, whatever you want. You know, there's pop stations and there's classic vinyl. And I just have that Beatles station on, and it would just be on. And that's after a couple of months of that, you know, she's like, "Hey, Dad, do you have the White Album on vinyl?" I'm like,
Nice.
"Yes." Yeah, I feel like we've talked about
Congratulations.
that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things where you those melodies now got ingrained in, and they are positive songs in the end. Like, yeah, John has a few negative tunes, or I'm a Loser, or whatever, like the darker stuff, but even those are interesting too, of course. And in general, what you have is this great body of music that's positive and about love, and has beautiful melodies, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing to silently brainwash. You know, we're going to get into the Kinks and the Stones here eventually too, but
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. It's working the other way with me. My daughter's trying to brainwash me with Taylor Swift, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, we both admire Taylor Swift greatly. My
sure.
daughter doesn't, she knows a good amount of her music, but my kid's more into Alana Del Rey. I don't know if your
Oh, nice.
daughter's, yeah, that she's, and I like got really emotional, you know, I got moved listening to some of that great artist's music. But yeah, I mean, thank God for Taylor Swift. She's kicking butt, and good for her. And it's another positive role model for
Yeah.
children.
Yeah. It's
That
it's it's a little crazy how the MAGA people are spinning the whole Taylor Swift thing now.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, I feel sorry for them because they're just like,
crazy.
you know, they just those poor folks that just got bent up about it. It's like you just made it worse for yourself by even suggesting all that. It's just, you know, but you know, there's other artists too, like from Texas, Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, you know, and their stuff is like, whoa, I'm a little, as a dad, you're just like, it's a bit much, you know, you can't imagine what our parents must have thought with whatever, why don't we do it in the
Right.
road, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like it's a pretty aggressively intense today. And Bill Maher just did a thing about it. I don't know if you saw that. I don't really tend to dig that guy that much anymore, but every now and then he'll do a segment on something where you're like, well, that's pretty good. And he
Yeah.
pointed out about all the greed and material dreams of pop songs today, as opposed to back in the day. It was like you had the song "Money," which the Beatles covered. I think Larry Williams wrote that. "Money" and "Material Girl" by Madonna. And then he just showed all these songs that are on the pop charts now that are about money and getting stuff and
Yeah.
sexual conquests and stuff like that, which has always been in rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a lot more of it today. And you know, I whatever I'm I listen to the pop stations too. You know,
Sure.
I don't just shut it out. I don't want to be that guy that's like,
Yeah.
I don't listen to new music. You know, I listen
Yeah.
to new music, and there's some great stuff out there.
It's easy to fall into the trap of being the old guy that complains about, the state of the world and state of music these days. And
Yeah.
back in my day, but it is tough, man. The music business itself it's so strange. And matter of fact, I was watching a documentary yesterday. Have you seen this? I think it's called Squaring the Circle. It's about the uh, the company that was started by a couple of guys in England to do Pink Floyd album covers, and then they ended up doing
Oh,
a ton of album cover. The company is
mhm.
called Hypnosis with a
Yeah.
G-N-O. Really fascinating, but yeah, a couple of points that came out of that. Watching that was like, man, the album cover itself was so much more cherished.
Oh, yeah.
It was a piece of art, and the musicians, sure, they were trying to make money, but there was more purity then. And I don't want to be that guy who says back in my day, but it's just true, man. It's just true. It's
Yeah.
changed
I
in
mean,
a lot of
it's
sad ways.
you know, there's recordings of like George Harrison and Jerry Garcia saying how rap is not music or whatever and all that.
Ah,
And that goes a little far. Like I
yeah,
definitely,
yeah,
we are those guys. You and I are both of, you know, we're older, and I understand, you know, we wish that drums sounded like they did on Zeppelin albums or whatever. We wish that things were analog and real, and I get all that. There is good art being made out there today. There's actually, it's really hard for it to get past the gatekeepers
Yeah.
of, but like there's new establishments. Like there's a new station here in Nashville that's playing unheralded artists, and there are a lot of the generations of our daughters and older age out there that grew up, listening to good music,
Yeah.
and now they're making pretty interesting music. It's just what hits the top of the charts these days. There's a lot more out there than we know
Yeah.
about, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're not going to get, you know, they're not famous like rock stars were in the day. I mean, that time's over, and it's a long, slow struggle to accept that streaming is
Yeah.
the way people are. It's difficult, but I still listen to vinyl. I'm just not happy to cart it all around Europe. Like I had to
Yeah.
carry it all around
Yeah.
Ireland.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
No,
I like
no,
to joke about it on stage.
but I do applaud you, man, for continuing to put your stuff out on vinyl. And let's talk about what you've got coming up here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
I
are you going to put that on vinyl?
You're getting the scoop. Yeah, that's the album cover right there, and it's like I know it's
Nice.
backwards here, but that's a black and white photograph. It's kind of dark on here, but the album's called "Find Your Way," and yeah, this on the first single, "Find Your Way," is going to come out with an animated video made by Maxwell Sebastian, the great artist. And the thing about this record is that I do want to talk about and say to the world is that it was not made in Nashville, for one. It was made in Canada with all Canadian musicians. It was produced by a guy named Leroy Stagger, who owns a studio out in Victoria called Neighborhood Recording. And it's his house, and it's the other half of his house, and it's just beautiful. And he has a beautiful family, and it's a really enjoyable time with Canadian musicians. And we all sat in one room and made this record together. So it's not a Nashville album. There's no separation between us. I sang with the band. It's a folk album, if you will, that style of recording. So it was made pretty quickly and pretty painlessly, and now it's going to be put out by Black Mesa Records of from Oklahoma. So you can pretty much find out about it pretty easily online. But the first single, "Find Your Way," is coming out this month in February, and I'm just proud of it because it is not your Nashville clean folk album. It's like it's rough around the edges and gentle in a soothing way to me. It's not formulaic, and it's some of the best songs I've written personally. I'm the songwriting machine in that department. Like I was just working on a song this morning before we started chatting, and I have a Patreon page, right? So I deliver demos to that every month, and then I deliver cover songs too. But I'm writing a lot, and the songs on this new album they're like short little films of relationships and things that I made up, things that I eavesdropped on, a little bit of combination of everything. It's not always my life that I'm singing about. Um, and it just I'm really proud of it. And yeah, you're basically getting the scoop. You're the first person I've ever talked to about it, really.
Nice, nice. And I think you told me in an email that the single is going to be released on the 16th. Is that right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think this conversation will go live pretty much the same day. So that's
that's
good
great.
timing. Good timing. And how many songs on the new record?
There's 10 songs on there, all Canadian band, just beautiful, like violin players, female harmony singing. Leroy Stagger did a wonderful job at producing it and gathering this team of musicians to help bring out the love in these songs. And there's a little bit of country folk, and country blues to it, which is my wheelhouse. But there's also some kind of like ethereal kind of folk pop thing going on. It's unlike any album I've made, and it's unlike any album being made and pushed out of Nashville right now. That's for sure. It does not sound. It was not made on a grid. There is no artificial intelligence used in the making of this album whatsoever. besides the fact that eventually we all use a computer like you and I are using right now
Sure.
to talk.
Sure.
Um, and but yeah, it's coming out on vinyl, and I will cart that vinyl all over the planet. I'll be in Texas this year in June. I'll be all over the place. TimEaston.com will have that information. But I'm pretty active in general, just on the social media sites like Instagram and stuff like that. I'm constantly generating work and poetry and stuff like that. And that's another thing that I do. I don't know if you guys know this, anybody out there, but I've now have 3 books of poetry,
Oh, no
right?
kidding. I didn't realize that, man.
Yeah, so that's what the pandemic did for me, man. I was like, the first book, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take all the poems that I've got in this folder called poetry on my laptop, and I'm gonna edit it and put the ones I want on there. And I took the photograph and I just made a book on Blurb on it's a website online where you can go make your own book. And then I made another one called Danger Poetry. That's just a photograph I took in the front, the hose that was in my driveway. I thought that was an interesting photograph. And then the newest one is called Northbound Heart, which is a thing where it's essays and photographs um, of fun stuff, like my dad holding this enormous salmon. That is a big fish.
That's up in
It's
Alaska, I'll bet.
Yeah, it's in Alaska. That's a king
Yeah.
salmon in Alaska. So this book is a lot about. There's me getting my first. It's like, if you want to scare people away, just start showing them fishing pictures. But there's a lot of essays in here, and poetry and stuff like that, about basically about my love of Alaska. And I'm like, I kind of like work. I get up every day and I work.
Yeah.
I'm a workaholic in that way, that I do set aside time. Did I do that in my 20s and 30s? No. But eventually I was like, okay, you want to be a writer, then write.
Yeah.
I did go to the Ohio State University and I was a poetry major, but I started writing songs, which is not the easy way out or anything, but it's easier than novels, that's for sure. And
That's for
I
sure.
started writing songs and started playing, and luckily I had great teachers that taught me about John Prine, and my brothers and sisters that taught me about Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and Bob Marley and all the great bluesmen and Mance Lipscomb. I'm gonna go visit Mance Lipscomb's grave when I get into Texas next time.
I'm about 20 minutes. I'm about 20 minutes
Navasota.
from Navasota. I
Right.
hope you'll look me up. Let's go
Let's do
visit
it,
that grave
man. Let's do
together.
it. I've
Yeah.
got that book. I see a parable. I sing me for a parable. So I'm definitely gonna do that. I'll be there in June. I'm playing the Saxon Pub
Yeah.
in Austin,
Yeah.
and I got some days off. If you want to have a house concert or have just a little
Good.
barbecue hang, I'll do it. So I'm all these dates are getting announced um, on the day of the single release for the new
Do you know
album.
where else in Texas you're playing besides Austin?
I am playing the Burger Joint in San Antonio,
Okay.
and I'm playing a place near Hainani's. It's near Houston, maybe.
That sounds
Uh,
familiar, but I'm not sure I know it.
yeah, all of you that are listening in Texas, the dates will be posted today,
Nice.
and yeah. So there's a couple of gigs in Texas, and touring a little bit with a guy named Jason Eady's, great songwriter from up in
Yep.
Fort Worth way.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I'm kind of excited to get back to Texas because everybody knows that I go to Alaska all the time.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to just getting back to Texas and eating some of that good food
Yeah.
and being around that culture of songwriting. Of course, had a profound impact on me, and when I say it now to younger songwriters, like when I was just in Ireland and they found out that I'd played with Townes Van Zandt,
Right.
or I opened up for Guy Clark, or I knew some of these guys or crossed their paths at one point in my life, they just kind of, it blows their mind. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like I hung out with Shakespeare or something.
Right. Right. Yeah, man,
Um,
you told the story last time we talked, last episode of when you opened up for Towns, and
yeah,
I know I think you may have told that story Did Otis Gibbs talk to you? Were you and
Yes.
Otis? Yeah, I think you might have
That's
told that story to Otis as
If you
well.
Google Otis Gibbs, Tim Easton, Towns Van Zandt, you're gonna get like the 8-minute version of that
Yeah,
story.
yeah. It's something.
Um,
It is something.
yeah. God
Um,
love Otis Gibbs's podcast
yeah,
films. So if anybody out there wants to see some good history, check it out.
he's definitely one of my inspirations. And yeah, when you come to Texas, reach out, or I'll reach out to you. And I've not, even though I'm 20 minutes from Minnesota, I've not been to Mance's grave, so I'd love to do that. Now you mentioned poetry. Are those poetry books available on your website?
Are they listed on my website? I'm not sure. Well, I'll put it this way. If you want to get a hold of me, you can just go to the website and write
Yeah.
the contact page that gets a hold of me. Are these up on there? I'm not sure actually. I'll be readjusting the website in the next couple of weeks, so I'll probably get them up there.
Yeah.
I got to get the new album on there
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So yeah, that's all part of like this current period's
Cool.
working plans, and just yeah, excited to like anybody out there listening, wants to do. I love fun, like I love house concert gigs, I love barbecues, I love Lightning Hopkins and Mance Lipscomb's career of playing like fish fries and
Yeah.
church functions, like those gigs, those guys, they could do it just with them and a guitar.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying my Travis picking is as good as theirs, but I've been studying it quite a while now.
It's pretty good though, man. It's pretty good.
Yeah, Justin Townes Earl was excellent at it. He, of course, was the first person. I think Justin Townes Earl was the first person I ever heard mention Mance Lipscomb's name. Actually,
Really.
I just didn't. I knew who Lightning Hopkins was because of Townes Van Zandt.
For the towns, yeah.
Yeah, and they were, he studied under him basically. Studied. He drank, learned how to play guitar. Like that. Yeah. They didn't call it studying then. It was just like hanging out and doing it.
Yeah.
And then so Justin was a very good picker, but he never wanted to show me how he did that. He just wanted to talk about fishing or something. But that school of country blues, or I don't know, it's almost like the invention. I'm really interested in the beginnings of troubadour, American troubadour, American, the origins of the one man band thing. I know Lead Belly, of course, did it. Also a Texan, right? A lot of the Mississippians, Elmore James, etc. I mean, in my case, I'm not comparing myself to those guys in any shape or form, except that there's one thing. It's like, remember when Chuck Berry would come around in his later days, or Bo Diddley, both who I saw play with pickup bands from my town in Columbus, Ohio.
Nice.
So they'd show up, and the promoter would get the three dudes, bass, drums, and another guitar player, that were the best at that, at rock, just boom, the basics, right? And I knew some of the guys that got to do those gigs, right? And I don't do that. I don't have that command either, but I can't afford to travel with a band,
Right.
I could, but then I wouldn't make a living.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're getting paid, I don't know, $500 for a gig, that's a pretty sweet gig when you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
When you have three other bandmates and hotel rooms and stuff to get, you're breaking even, if that.
At best, yeah. Right.
So it's like, that's just the reality of the life. So I'm really glad that I studied these guys, because now I can tell story. I can do it on my own. I have the capability of like doing it. It's just that it just gets exhausting if you add in the driving and all the coordinating and all the tour management of it all, the lugging the merch around. Vinyl, I could swear up a storm right now just thinking about, like, imagine, you grew up, you had vinyl. You remember what it's like moving your vinyl collection?
Oh, I know. I've pared it down a little bit, but I've got I think it's about 500 records right now.
And I'm way less than that, but I have to move my vinyl collection every day. If I'm on the road with vinyl, let's just say I have 70 of them. That's a lot of records. That's heavy.
It is. And like a guitar, you've got to pay attention to the weather too.
Exactly.
You leave it in your car, and yeah. Yeah.
Nope, done. It's all of a sudden rendered useless
Right.
merch if you leave it
Do
in
you
public.
even bother with CDs anymore? Do you put stuff on CD?
I do. Yeah, I know. I do.
Yeah.
In Australia they buy CDs. In Japan they buy CDs.
Mm.
Um, People still buy them occasionally, but yeah, it's sad that it's just like gone away.
Yeah.
For like 1 second last year, it felt like they were coming back or something. That was like
I, I I threatened to get rid of my CDs, and a friend of mine very quickly said, "I'll take them." And just in that moment, I realized, I think the reason he's jumping to that so quickly is there's going to be a day. It may not be like vinyl, but there's going to be a day when those old CDs are cherished.
well, I mean, I hope so. Like I bought my daughter a boom box that plays CDs for her for Christmas this year, and she's way into the Clash album. And so then now she's learning what an album is like to go in your bedroom and put an album on. It's like just cool, you know. And so it's cheap, it's easy. We actually were able to make a living, you know, us traveling salesmen. So it's yeah. I mean, I could grumble about it all day, but I just try to deal with the reality, and then you shift into printing poetry books. It's
Yeah.
like it says in here, stash all your secrets and fears inside a book of poetry. Then you're most assured no one will ever see them. You know? It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like it's like like these are hotcakes out there,
Right.
but it's really radical in one way. When you are at a merch table and you have vinyl, when someone like picks up your album and examines it, they're not they're getting a little bit of the art vibe from it, but they don't know what's in there. When they
Yeah.
pick up a poetry book and they
Yeah.
can immediately open up to a poem, it's like really nerve wracking at the merch table. You're like, uh oh, not that
Yeah.
one, not that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I want to thank you. You related to your Ireland tour, recent tour. You had some kind of post on Facebook uh, mentioning Seamus Heaney,
Yeah, love that.
and I went to my shelf and dug up my old. Yeah, man. Uh, I've got a signed copy here of
Huh,
Met the Man years ago, and
that's funny.
you
That's
know the
awesome.
poem "Digging," right?
Yeah, I do. I know it well, and I didn't realize how much I plagiarized from it.
So good, so good. What other poets do you read, or that maybe have influenced you, or do you just like to read?
Um, I also I read them all. I do
How
have a
about Billy
specific.
Collins?
Yeah, he's great.
Oh
Absolutely.
man.
I have a thing for Latin poets,
Mm,
not just Neruda, but some of the Chileans, Bolaño,
yeah.
Nicanor Parra, the anti-poets, kind of their beat poetry guys. Um, but this is
Octavio Paz.
Octavio Paz was, of course, that's weird. I just read him this morning with my daughter because we were having breakfast and I looked up on my shelf and I go, I've got two Octavio Paz books. And it's like,
You are one of the few people I know who will appreciate the fact that I hung out with Octavio Paz. I had
oh,
drinks,
wow.
a lot of drinks with him, and dinner with him years ago. Just me and him and two other people, and it was special. It was really
Wow.
special.
I
Yeah,
read his poetry this morning to my daughter because there's
that's
one
so
called
crazy.
Father. Or no, wait, that was the Neruda. We read a little bit of Neruda and a little bit of Paz, but I will say this. I want to go. I can go right to this thing about the digging. So in if you go to Dublin right now, there's a huge like exhibit of Seamus Heaney's poetry in the bank. The bank paid for it. It's a beautiful exhibit. Digging is up on a wall, and there's a whole thing about it. And I had read the poem before, but for whatever reason, I didn't realize um, how much it had either I had emulated it or whatever happened. It just I have a poem in here that says I had a job digging ditches, and I make a metaphor with that my guitar is a shovel. And then the very first album I ever made, Special 20, the very first solo album, um, says I pissed away most of my youth in some one street rock and roll band, and the rest standing on some foreign corner with a shovel in my hand, which is the shovel is the guitar, and that metaphor has
Mhm.
been part of my thing from the start. So it's I have that similar
Yeah.
thing. It's just to actually read that and like I don't feel like I stole it from Seamus Heaney, but it's
Right.
definitely also part of my creative thing. You know, yeah,
You
it's
both
part
got
of
it from some universal
yeah. His dad,
source.
Doug, his dad is digging,
Yeah.
and then I know that I there was a Canadian songwriter in Paris, and I remember him saying like, "You ready to go out and dig some ditches?" We're going out busking.
Hmm.
So that's where I think I got it from.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's ready to go out and hit the streets, dig some ditches. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? He's like, yeah, man, let's grab your shovel, let's go. And I just, that was 1990, 91, and we were going out trying to just make a living with our acoustic shovels.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, look, I've already taken up quite a bit of your time, and
All right.
you and I could talk for hours, and
Yeah, man. Good talking to you.
I may try to talk you into being the first three-peat guest at some
Nice.
point.
I'd be proud to do it. You're really fun to talk to, and I love it. I love doing this. So appreciate all your listeners out there, checking out the new stuff that's coming out pronto. And yeah, you're going to get the scoop on this one.
Nice.
And
And I'll put links.
there's
I'll put links on the show notes, and I also want to encourage people to don't miss your last record, North American Songwriter. That's a really cool record.
thank
20
you.
songs, just acoustic in the studio, right?
Yeah.
And terrific record. I hope people will pay attention to, and we'll put your Patreon link up there too. Would you
Thank you
take
so
us
much.
out with a song?
Oh yeah. Let's see what we got here. Let me grab this one. Yeah. Well, I married a redhead and she's a fighter. Smokes more weed than you or Todd Snyder. I tried to keep up, but I could barely hang. Well, I blame it all on you, Jesus, and my broken brain. Started out fine, out a crack inside. By the time I was 10, I was leaking light. There was nothing to do but try and cover the stains. Now I'm permanently young, man, and thanks to my broken brain. Underneath the stars, I'm as cool as a breeze, but you can't call the shots when you're down on your knees. So I lay on the ground, playing with a paper plane, and I sail into the moon together with my broken brain. I know a little girl who's as sharp as a nail. She's the cat above, I'm the fish in the pail. When she was through with me, she jumped on another train. I heard a shouter from the window, Daddy, good luck with your broken brain. Doctor says there was nothing to do but to stop carrying on like I do. To expect any other answer would just be insane. Well, that doesn't quite fit with the plans of my broken brain. One more verse. I pulled over to the side of the road cause I wanted to write down a couple of notes about my happenstance life, the good, bad, joy, and the pain. I owe it all to you, Jesus, and my broken brain. I owe it all to you, Jesus, and my broken brain. Well, you know that I'm doing all right.
Nice, man. Nice. Thank you. Hey, Tim, thank you so much for everything you do. I love listening to you. I love talking to you. And hey, let's hang out in June when you're here in Texas.
You got it. I will check in.
Right on, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Catch you down the road.
All right. Appreciate it.